All right, what's your guys' favorite space movie?
My favorite space movie is Star Wars Phantom Menace. Next.
Yeah.
Jesus.
What? I ruined it already. That's not even true.
Everybody just turned the episode off.
Yeah,
everybody just
You're going to
unsubscribe.
catch some shit now.
I don't read it, Kyle.
Yeah.
I'll never know.
I'm going to be offended on Terry's behalf. Yeah. What's yours?
2001 Space Odyssey.
I mean, yeah.
I got a soft spot in my heart for Kubrick.
Did you read it?
No, I didn't actually.
It's so much better than the movie, and the movie's fucking phenomenal.
All right.
I don't know. There's so fucking much of it. Spaceballs.
Oh, that's a good choice.
Sure.
Yeah.
No.
Which is probably the closest to an actual D&D campaign out of every other movie in existence.
Really? Never seen it.
What?
What?
Have you been living under a rock?
I don't know. I didn't know that was like an essential movie to see.
Well, it is. So, by the next time we hang out, you better have watched it by then.
Okay.
Cancel the next recording. We're going to educate Terry.
Yeah.
There's no recording. I'll show up with notes and it'll just be stick that movie on.
Welcome to the It's a Mimic podcast, where you never know what you're going to get.
Welcome to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, where we continue our conversation on Playable Races in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. I am Terry, and with me today are Kyle and Adam, and this episode is called UFO Races Unusual Fantasy Origins.
I hate the word origins. I always say oranges.
Well, I've never done that before, but I feel like now I will.
Yeah.
In this episode of the It's a Mimic podcast, this panel of Dungeon Masters will be sitting down to look at 3 new playable races, or lineages, as Wizards of the Coast calls them now, from the new Spelljammer campaign setting. But instead of new humanoids, players have the opportunity to latch onto a kind of playable construct, or ooze, or monstrosity.
So, one of the big online complaints about these kind of player options is that a number of spells specifically state that they only affect humanoids, and they won't affect these playable races now. So, as a DM, do you homebrew it so that spells will work on any PC, or do you just keep it rules as written? Let's roll.
Let's roll. There it is. Couldn't find the hole. There we go. I got a 2.
I got a 12.
1.
I am absolutely going to tell people in session 0 that IS will still affect your players, like your characters. With the exception of the sleep shit for elves, which again I hate. It's unnecessary. The can't magically be put to sleep. I thought this for the Fae, for the Harengon and the Fairy as well that you can play. Like, just have it be able to affect shit. And if you're not going to do that, then give them a weakness. Because as it stands now, humanoids are by far the worst thing to choose now. And now you're just going to end up with all these crazy fucking bullshit lineages, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, what I do is go with whatever is easier for me as the DM to work around. Because every time you change something, there's ripple effect, and it means you got to change something else. If the easier option for me as the DM is to say, these spells will affect all of the player characters still, no matter what. Are we all in agreement with that? That means fewer things for me to change later on, fewer loopholes. As long as the team agrees with that right from the start, then that's my decision.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is I'm sitting there looking like, okay, if it's a construct that doesn't need to breathe, for example, then I feel like I need to... They chose that for a reason, so they want to see that more often. So I have to have poison clouds and underwater shit more often in my homebrew campaign that I wasn't planning on having, just so they can feel rewarded for playing that kind of character, which, again, is them dictating shit that I wasn't prepared to do. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fair assessment. Or if you're casting spells, you can choose what you're targeting, right? Like, especially if it's like an area of effect, like I'm only going for constructs, or I'm only going for oozes, or I'm only going for monstrosities.
I really like that, yeah.
Okay, but before we get any deeper into this, let's cut to an ad break.
We've previously covered quite a bit in our discussion on player options in 5th edition. For all those episodes and more, you can follow or subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and dozens of other podcast apps. And if you'd like to support us, you can donate through the website, check our store, or join our Patreon and get access to other episodes and series. If you'd like to pay for some ad space on It's a Mimic, or just shout out to a friend, please reach out to us through our email and website that are listed in the show notes below.
This week on the It's a Mimic Patreon, we finally get to kick off the relaunch of the Campaign Builder. The first episode back takes a look at what it means for your party to be local folk heroes, the fame, the rumor, and the responsibilities. Joining me for all of Level 6 is Tyler, who even managed to rework the theme music to sound a little prettier and a little more on brand. And for Patreon subscribers, make sure you listen to the variant episode where Dan and I tackled the same issue way back in 2020. This really does highlight the difference between DMs and inspirations, and you can see how Tyler brings a new, fresh perspective to the conversation. Anyway, let's get back to the episode.
Okay, let's kick it off then with an overview of what we're going to discuss today. So I'll start with a brief explanation of space fantasy as a genre. So space fantasy is a hybrid genre within speculative fiction that kind of simultaneously draws upon, it combines tropes and elements from both science fiction and fantasy. So in conventional science fiction, the world is still presented as being scientifically logical. If you think of, let's use Stargate is probably a good example of this. While to our knowledge, the things that happen within Stargate, the Stargates themselves, are not yet possible, or we don't understand how they would be possible, but they're expressed as being scientifically logical. Where in a conventional fantasy story, most of these subjects are covered as being mostly supernatural or artistic in their element, and they disregard the scientific laws of the real world. The world of space fantasy, however, is laid out to be scientifically logical and often supplied with hard science-like explanations of any supernatural elements. And we can explain this further as we discuss Spelljammer. So Spelljammer is a campaign setting which was originally published for the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, that's 2nd edition, which features a fantastic, as opposed to scientific, outer space environment. The Spelljammer ships are open-topped like regular kind of, old
They're
wooden
galleons.
ships. Galleon, that's it exactly. But so that seems fantastic that they will be flying through space, but there is a science kind of adjacent answer in that they somehow, have their own gravity field, and that is what means that everybody can kind of stand on the deck and walk around in space. So the Spelljammer setting is designed to allow the unusual sword and sorcery adventures of Dungeons and Dragons to take place within the framework of outer space. It also comes with its own set of new rules for the 5th edition introduction of Spelljammer. You will see rules for ship encounters, ship-to-ship starting distances from, how these encounters will go or what weapons can be included based on the distance that the encounter starts from. New rules for crashing the Spelljammer ships, shipboard tasks such as cleaning the captain's boots or cleaning the barnacles off the hull.
That's all barnacles? I was going to say. Clean the barnacles off the...
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Certain ship quirks, like perhaps your cargo hold is haunted by a very friendly ghost, those kinds of quirks. And then different types of ship cargo and how to deal with that, whether it's regular cargo, expensive cargo, whatever it may be. So we have a whole bunch of new rules. Okay, let's roll initiative first. I've got a couple of questions for you guys here.
Sure.
Can't find the hole again, huh, Terry?
They don't know what happened.
Okay,
I got a 12.
Kyle got a 15. He's first. I'm going to last with an 8.
Okay, let's stick with that order then. My first question, Kyle, to you first. Are you interested in playing Spelljammer? In playing the Spelljammer campaign setting?
If someone came up to me and was like, hey, you want to play in my campaign? I would say yes. But am I going to go out looking for it or start a campaign? Unlikely.
What's the reason that it's unlikely?
I'm quite happy with, fantasy universes. I don't need to add space into it.
Sure. I think I have the same answer. It's I'm not going to actively go out and look for it. When it happens, it'll happen. I'm excited for it. But currently, for my own kind of gaming right now, I'm all set. But I would like to play. Yeah.
I have been vocal in the past. It's been a while. It's probably been like 100 episodes. But I've vocally said, like, on this podcast, keep your magic out of my fucking science fiction and vice versa. I don't like the Mind Flayer ray guns and shit that has popped up in the Underdark and it feels thematically fucking weird. Even though it is traditional for D&D to do this, it's not my fantasy. But I did a lot of thinking about it before this campaign setting came out. These 3 weird books that they gave us. And I'm like, I really liked Star Wars as a kid. Like, I really fucking liked Star Wars as a kid. And I have dug into Doctor Who and Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon. Like,
Right.
I've messed with a little bit of this. I mean, is Thor magic or is he science?
Magic?
Is he? Because it's all just fucking strange alien metals and long-lived alien lives and teleporting through special portals to... Like, it's not magic like Doctor Strange is.
Yeah.
He runs around with the Guardians of the Galaxy, right? So, like, there have been things that have blended it in the past, and it's not my favorite, but I've definitely accepted it without really complaining. So, yeah, I do this. But again, if I'm going to play a pirate campaign, I want it to be Yar Pirate, not Pew Pew Pirate, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
but that's just me. If somebody said, hey, I'm going to run a 1-shot, 6-shot, 12-shot, 3-year campaign, I'll be like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'll never turn down a game.
Yeah. However, am I going to clamor for it? Probably not. Like, maybe they find a ship so they can go up into space in my homebrew for 3 episodes, and then the ship crashes back where they were.
Yeah.
Like that's how you got to the other continent, right? Like, I'll dabble, but I'm not gonna.
Well, that leads me on to the next question. So, Kyle, you first. Are you going to allow your players to introduce one of these new bizarre pieces of lore into an established adventure such as Curse of Strahd, Tomb of Annihilation?
I would lean towards no, but I am open to it. If you can give me a good enough explanation about how it got there and it will work in whatever setting I'm doing, then yeah, I'll allow it. But I mean, I'm going to say 20% chance of saying yes.
I'm kind of in agreement in that I like the whole judo concept of you push, I pull. However, with the Spelljammer lore, that's one of the sets of lore where it's going to be the real kind of elephant in the room. Like, it's once you pull that in, it's there. Like, how do you get rid of it again? I mean, Adam said you crash the spaceship and they can't access it. But if you give those guys a fucking ray gun, they're going to hold onto that ray gun for them. Good luck trying to get that thing away from them.
Well, you give them a certain amount of uses. So it's like you got 3 shots with it.
And there are rules for the ray guns too. Like, they have specific rules. I'm trying to remember which fucking book it was that gave us all that fucking crazy ass mind flared nonsense. I think it was Icewind Dale gave us like the gnomes, the squidlings, and the xenomorphs. It's been a while. So, but like that shit exists and there's rules for the ray guns, and it is limited. Like, this shit will malfunction and blow up at some point. Like, and yeah, okay, that's fun, that's cool, I'm sure, whatever. Honestly, yeah, I'm always going to let people play with this shit, but like within reason. Autognomes can be from the plane of Mechanus.
Yeah.
Or Mechanus, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Jeff is doing, I know for a fact, because I spoke to him about this, Jeff is doing, okay, if you're one of Jeff's players, stop listening, skip ahead like 5 minutes. Because he told me all about this shit and it's awesome. He had a character who was playing a Plasmoid from the UA stuff, but there's no reason for that because he's in a Curse of Strahd campaign. So what they did was they said, this person was found in one of the crypts or tombs or whatever, because his original character died, so this is a second character coming in. What he doesn't know is that he is the spawn of Dweeblex, the god of Ooze and icky things. So like, he is essentially an evil demon lord of slime, but doesn't have any recollection of it and is getting more powerful as he goes. Yeah, I'm totally going to work that shit into my campaign.
Yeah,
that can work.
That's awesome. So, and Thri-Kreen are already all over the fucking place anyway. So yeah, I'll do that. Sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got to bend over backwards too, but there's some cool opportunities if you're open to it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, some of these you can work into it without the space theme, right? Like ship to ship starting distances, crashing, onboard tasks. Those are all.
We get a lot of that shit in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and this feels like it got an update and a contradictory in some places, and there's a good synergy in other places. Someone's got to sit down at Wizards and be like, here are the ship rules. Hard stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the breakdowns of our 3 lineages that we have today then. I will go first. I will be discussing Autognomes, and I just realized this second that you've put me onto a gnome, Adam. All the way through my prep, all the way through everything. The penny never dropped until I just said Autognome out loud. Okay, but let's go for it. Okay, I'm all about having my mind changed. Okay, so Autognomes are mechanical creatures that travel the unknowns of wild space. They do share a lot of similarities with gnomes for a reason, as they were primarily built by rock gnomes, and now they're off inhabiting wild space. Although they were originally created to serve the gnomes that built them, it is known that countless Autognomes have struck out on their own after being separated from their creator. Autognomes do resemble gnomes physically. Most of them can also speak Gnomish, but that isn't that isn't essential. I think they get one. I think it's common, right, that they can read, write, and whatever, maybe an additional language. So it doesn't need to be Gnomish. While their external appearances can vary, their internal design can also vary and differ significantly as well. Some of them may have functioning, biological hearts. Some of them may not. Some of them are powered by clockwork. Some of them are a little bit more fantastic. There's no kind of hard, fast rules. It's just that the Autognome has been created by a rock gnome.
So hold on a sec. You said they could have like functioning organic hearts, like they're like cyborgs as well?
Yes.
Cool. Now I'm paying attention because we have brain in a jar already is a thing.
Yeah.
Where like in D&D where you can just have a disembodied psychic brain sitting in a jar. That's fucking lore and has been for a while in 5th edition. So I love the idea of just plunking that into an Autognome and off he goes.
At what point does an Autognome become a gnome, though? That's the question, right?
Well, when it comes out of a gnome.
Okay.
Another gnome.
Robin Williams. That's a different view on this.
I am also more curious about the beating heart that they have in them.
Yeah.
Like
right?
it's hydronics, right? Like, there's pumps and...
No. It says in the description that they like actual hearts.
Oh, yeah.
Not all of them.
Like biological heart. Yeah, I know, but that is what I'm more interested in, because where did they get the heart?
Right.
Did they have to kill someone right next to the Autognome? Because, I mean, like, when you're doing a transplant, that thing only lasts for so long.
Gentle repose.
Okay.
They cast gentle repose on the heart.
Yeah.
They stick it in and they just they use literal pumps and tubes inside to get the blood flowing, and then it starts to beat again. And this is how my artificer would do it.
I love how all of us as D&D players, we say we know that this is a fantastic concept and it's not real life, but still we always try and say, well, how does that even happen?
Well,
my
my mind is whirling with the thought of like these rock gnomes ritually sacrificing people, maybe other gnomes,
or maybe a way to keep people alive. Like if your spouse died or something, that's a way of kind of immortalizing them.
Oh, I like the idea though of you kill your enemies and recycle their body parts in. So every one of you that I kill adds to our numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, that's such an Adam way of thinking.
We are Legion.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's look at some 5th edition lore then. So to give you a little bit of background on Autognomes have previously existed in previous editions of D&D, but this is the first time that they've been a playable race. When I think of Autognomes, I think of stereotypes such as this. I think of them as being seemingly naive or perhaps rather absent-minded, maybe even kind of lacking empathy. I think of Data from Star Trek, in that seems so human, or so humanoid in some ways, but really struggles at concepts of humanity. And I think it might be the same thing with Autognome, especially because they are usually designed with a specific purpose, and I imagine it would be difficult for them to even consider anything outside of that purpose. So they might try and lean into it all the time, even without even realizing it. I think that they would have a tendency to lead towards their specialization or their original purpose, and because of that, that would likely make their reactions and their preferences quite predictable. I don't think that they would make decisions affected by their mood or external influences such as hunger or lack of sleep. So their reactions and their behavior is going to be quite predictable.
Do they sleep?
They do not sleep. They go inactive for a minimum of 6 hours, but they are considered fully conscious as that is happening.
Someone's gonna crank the big key on their back.
Yeah.
Or on their front.
Yeah.
Just crank it.
So for Autognomes, one of the major changes the Wizards of the Coast has embraced recently is the move away from the race-specific ability score bonuses. This actually offers more flexibility in selecting the lineage that you want without being limited by the classes that are optimal for that line up well with the race that you've chosen. So you have two options when you're selecting your ability scores. You can now choose to add a +2 to one ability and then add a +1 to another ability. Or the other option is to take a +1 bonus to 3 different abilities.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm done yelling about that. Sure.
Yeah. For Autognomes, the creature type is a construct. Their lifespan is roughly 500 years. They are all considered to be small, standard walking speed of 30 feet. They have armor casting, so they are encased in thin metal or some other type of durable material. And while they are not wearing armor, the base armor class is 13 plus their dexterity modifier. They're built for success, and this means that they can add a d4 to any one attack roll, ability check, or saving throw that they make, and they can do so after seeing the d20 roll, but before the effects of the roll are resolved. So you can use this trait a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, and you regain all expended uses when you complete a long rest. They are considered to be a healing machine, so that means that if the mending spell is cast onto an Autognome, you can spend a hit die, roll it, and regain a number of hit points equal to your roll plus your Constitution modifier.
That's pretty awesome.
How often can you do that?
As many times, as many hit dice as you have.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, fuck, why not, right?
Well.
However, in addition, Autognomes are also created to still feel the effect of healing magic. So, Cure Wounds, Healing Word, Mass Cure Wounds, all of those spells will still work on this on the Autognomes.
Boo.
You don't like that?
Boo.
It's like choose one. I guess, right?
Cake and eating it too is what's happening.
Yeah. Because of their mechanical nature, this is important to note. You have resistance to poison damage, and you are immune to all diseases. And you have advantage on saving throws against being paralyzed or poisoned. You do not need to eat, drink, or breathe.
That is the sound of people jerking off to fucking Autognomes because they just became the most powerful fucking thing in the game.
You do not need to eat,
insane.
drink, or breathe at it.
Oh.
And fuck, sure.
Sentry's Rest is what I mentioned a moment ago, so you spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state instead of sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but you remain conscious.
Which is
so
weird.
Nothing is ever sneaking up on you when you sleep ever again. There's no more watches, nothing.
Well, so many thoughts.
Yeah.
So many complaints.
Specialized design, the Autognome will gain two proficiencies of their choice. Okay, so for some insights about role-playing this race, some people might say it's easy for new players, but I would argue that it's actually very difficult for a new player because the Autognome, by design really, would be limited in its emotions, limited in its reactions, limited in its opinions and its preferences. And it is very hard for us as human beings, especially when you're getting involved in a game, to be like that. And we're supposed to be playing this player character, right?
Yeah.
And so,
I don't agree with you on that. I don't think they are a uniform kind of personality, right? Because they're built for different purposes, so they have different strengths, weaknesses, different knowledge bases, right? And that is pretty much what personality is.
Well, I guess it's the difference between R2 and 3PO.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there are different limitations on every droid. And these are not robots, these are droids.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, I'm really getting that feel of them. Like, they have their personalities. They were created by somebody and so on and so forth, but they have sentience. They can run around and do their own shit. It's weird they don't have a culture. They come from rock gnomes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's an origin. What do they do? What do they want? How do they do?
what do they do when there's a number of them in a room?
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Are they the Borg, or are they just more people?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think of it as a reflection of their creator, right? Because it even says, they all bear a resemblance to whoever created them. So I think it means not just in looks, but also in personality. Like, they'll take a little bit of their creator's personality into them, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know. I imagine like when the Rock Gnome was creating it, it's like almost imbuing it with a piece of its soul.
That would be great if it was an artificer and there was magic. And you have to assume there's magic in this process.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I start to run into issues because, first of all, it's the first construct we have which just spits in the face of Warforged. Like, when we got Eberron and Warforged came out, traditionally speaking, they don't sleep, eat, breathe, and in previous editions, there were constructs that couldn't heal. You had to use mending in order to heal them, right? Which is fine, but I think mending was a first level spell. It wasn't a cantrip at that point, right? So you were blowing spell slots or having to use scrolls in order to heal a Warforged up. But it doesn't sleep, it always watches shit. And Autognome is just a Warforged, but at least the Warforged have a unique, weird culture. Like, they were all built for war, but the war has ended. They've only existed as a species for 6 years. What are they doing now?
Mm-hmm.
And they're just lost wanderers trying to find their place in society, right? Having zero life experience and only bred for war. What do? That's got way more of a plot hook for me than they're like gnomes but made of wood, so they can still heal, but they have all of the upsides of being a construct and none of the downsides. And by the way, make it however you want to make it. It just seems so empty. It's hollow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they are hollow.
Some of them might be. They're all different on the inside, as are all of us.
La la la.
Okay, here are my insights when it comes to combat tactics. Okay, I think when you have this this mechanical nature where you are, it's resistance to poison damage, right? And then it's saving throws, advantage on saving throws against being paralyzed and poisoned, and you do not need to breathe. I think at this point you can really fight on your own terms. You know, anyone can go underwater, but we know we can only stay there for so long. You do not need to breathe, right? So you can fight from wherever you want to fight and kind of force them to come to you if they need to kill you, using the water as an example. You can do some kind of kamikaze move and be buried underneath rubble and take the enemy with you, and it's completely fine as long as you survive the bludgeoning damage. Let them suffocate and we'll come dig you out in 10 minutes. You know, it kind of flips around the combat a lot, I think. You can fight amongst a lot of poisonous mushrooms because it likely won't bother you for a little bit. My second insight is that I think it becomes your job to become the obvious target where you can be. You're running distraction. If you're getting saving throws against all of this stuff and you don't need to breathe and the paralyzed thing, whatever, it's essentially your job to make sure that that enemy creature targets you first and nobody else. So everybody essentially gets a free round when you're running off in front of the green dragon or whatever poisonous creature, because you want them to try and attack you first. So become the obvious target to take the heat off of everybody else. I don't know if you guys want to weigh in on anything there that kind of came to mind.
Well, I mean, they're obviously going to be martial classes, right? Like, it leans into that because you can be front row, and there's a lot of poison shit out there in D&D. A lot of stuff that's immune to poison, but a lot of stuff that does poison them as well. So, I mean, that makes a certain amount of sense. You're going to want to be on watch, right? You're going to be the person on watch. So, do you have dark vision? I'm assuming, of course, you do, because it's 5th edition.
Oh, I can't.
No, you don't.
Actually, it's not. It doesn't mention dark vision.
Well, shit. All right. I am all over that. That rebalances it a little bit in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you are holding... I wish you were susceptible to fire.
Yeah. Well, they're metal. They're not wood.
Then lightning.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, be susceptible to something. You have all of these bonuses.
There's a little spell called heat metal.
Well, there's that too, right? But I mean, now you're just a hot autognome.
You can run and grab people.
And frankly, I'm already all over hot gnomes anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, the thing that bugs me is like the two classes they would clearly be best at is barbarian and monk, right? With their natural AC. You add on the dex bonus plus the constitution or your wisdom, right? Like, that thing's practically invincible. It's a great frontline fighter, but it is a fucking little doll. It doesn't thematically make sense to me.
I think that these guys were originally, and bear with me on this, their constructs and their gnomes, they're clearly inspired by lawn gnomes. And that is the original joke. That has been lost in 4 editions.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah.
Like, but they're space. Sure, okay, that's how we've justified it, but in my head, these guys are lawn gnomes. I love the idea of a barbarian freaking autognome too, because it's not even raging, it's just kill mode on.
Yeah.
Right?
I love the flavor of the eyes change.
Yeah,
Eyes
right.
turn red or something. I am enraged.
But I mean, still, again, why are these small creatures getting 30-foot movement for no reason? This just has no downsides to it, and I hate that. I want there to be weird
that's a good
quirks,
point. The
right?
30 feet movement, yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's roll initiative again. Once we've decided the order, I shall ask the question. I got a natural 20.
I got a 19. Kyle's going last with a 17. Well, shit, that's how the cookie crumbles there.
That's all right. Saving the best for last.
Sure.
All right,
both know
I'm
it's
still
true.
making these jokes
Yeah.
out hundreds of episodes later.
All right, Terry, talk to yourself.
I will talk to myself. I want to know everybody's thoughts on quests, quest inspiration. I'll start with myself because I rolled the highest. I like the idea of the Autognome being built to complete a special mission, a specific mission. But maybe for whatever reason, maybe there's a glitch or whatever the reason is.
I was built only to love.
And anything impeding that mission, by the Autognomes' understanding, is automatically evil because it is preventing them from doing whatever their purpose was. So to the Autognome, that would be perhaps be considered evil. But if they don't know where they came from or what their purpose is, I would like over the course of the campaign for them to maybe be revealed that their purpose was either to support the big bad or aid the big bad's mission in some way. And so we start to get this challenge of, because they have sentience, and I guess, it's not like they're glued to their purpose, but there'll be some sort of struggle because they know that is their challenge now to defeat that, but they were built originally to support that. So
I like that. I think that's cool. I also like the idea of see, my plot hook is I'm going robots. It's a robot plot hook. Here we are. It's time for robots.
Sure.
And robots, I have serial numbers. So I'm assuming that I'm thinking of 7 of 9 from Voyager.
I often do.
And now Picard. Have you watched Picard yet?
In the same way that I watched 7 of 9? Or...
The show Picard.
No, I haven't. It's on the list. It is on the list.
Okay. But Spaceballs isn't. Fuck. Anyways, but like the idea of 7 of 9 always bothers me because I'm like, where are the other 8?
Yeah.
Right? And so the idea that this guy would be number 12. And he was the one that was, or maybe number 1. He was there with the creator, and he was there with the creator who sent he helped build all of the others and send them out on a spacefaring voyage to whatever. And then he stayed there and supported. He was the Alfred to the Batman of the creator. And now that rock gnome has died. So now he has to go find the other rock gnomes, like the other Autognomes that were his brethren that got sent out. And he knows what they look like. He knows how many there are. He knows where they were sent, but he needs to get there. And when he gets there, of course, the DM's like, well, there's just clues. They're not actually there. Where did they go? And that's my plot hook. So a reason for these guys to fucking adventure.
Yeah. All right. I'm making a Pinocchio campaign just to piss you off, Adam.
Fucking
yeah.
It's fucking Geppetto.
It's just right there.
Fucking
Come on.
Gepettophile.
Yeah. A rock gnome creates this little thing and then gives it life. And then...
It's so fucking weird that we get 2 Pinocchio movies right now, too.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting the Tom Hanks one. We're also getting the fucking Guillermo del Toro one.
Oh, what? I hadn't heard
Oh,
about that
yeah.
one.
And it's stop motion. It looks creepy as fuck, which is what Pinocchio should be.
Yeah.
It should not be childlike wonder and innocence. That kid was alive for less than 24 hours. All I want is a child. Now, here's an apple. Go to school. What school? Doesn't matter. What direction? Who cares? Is anyone going to ask me questions about where this boy came from? No, fuck you. Down the lane. Off you go.
Yeah.
Oh, God, he didn't come back. I guess I'd better row in a boat out to nowhere. What? What is this fucking story that we had? I'm fucking done.
Oh, yeah.
What is that nonsense bullshit? By the way, there are anthropomorphic foxes over here. We're going to turn you into kind of a donkey. And did you guys remember that the guy that runs that fucking sideshow never gets caught, never gets punished? That's it. They're still out there somewhere kidnapping children.
I knew this was going to start a rant.
I'm done. I'm sorry.
I think this is the 3rd episode I've been on where you've been on a rant about Pinocchio.
Why is nobody asking where these children are? Everyone in town is happy as Larry.
Because, man, it is like the 17th century. They don't give a shit about their kids. They'll just pop out another one.
Fair one. Fair one.
Fuck.
Okay, wow. All right, well, let's move it on to it.
Why did the cricket have a voice, but the cat didn't? What the fuck is that? That poor cat is the only non-athlete. All right, I'm done.
Because the cricket is magic, man. He also wears a suit with a top hat and a cane.
Is that all it takes to be magic?
I don't know. I feel like the magic came first and then the suit afterwards.
Is it the same top hat? It's manufactured with the same Frosty the Snowman top hat?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know.
From now on, I'm going to have magical top hats that can give sentience in my campaigns. That's my takeaway from this episode.
Welcome to another episode of Three Men in Their 30s ranting about a movie that came out 80 years ago.
That's what the internet's for.
Take that,
Disney.
yeah. Glad we fixed all of Disney's problems. Yeah. Role-playing. Okay, my insights for role-playing then. I think to make role-playing easier, stick firm to your bonds, your ideals, and your flaws. It's going to give you a lot of direction with Autognomes, and it'll give you an understandable kind of direction to stick to where if you're becoming just a little bit kind of too human. I think these creatures will also be stuck stuck fast to their alignments. I don't think they are going to be convinced to change their minds on things, although that could be part of their character development. But knowing what we know about humans in real life who refuse to change their minds on anything, it could still be difficult to do. Still could be difficult to pull off. So how can you make it fun and not an annoyance is the question that comes from this if you're sticking hard and fast to those. So I'm arguing my own point, really.
Well, no, as long as it doesn't get in the way of the other party members.
Right.
And as long as... I don't mean like being contradictory to... The barbarian says one thing, like, nope, we'll not do that. That's one kind. But also the bard is trying to talk to the shopkeeper and you keep saying shit. This is my programming. You're getting in the way. Like, know when to shut up.
Yeah.
Right? That's one of the things I've done for lawful good characters in previous editions when you get stuck, where lawful good meant lawful stupid back then.
Yeah.
Was I would just learn, I would go in with a way to be distracted by something else so that I'm focused on that, and the rogue can still steal, they can still be murder hoboing in the back alley because I got distracted by a street vendor out front, right? And so I'm not aware of it. And it creates laughs at the table that hey, we did this thing, all except for Adam over there because he's lawful good and couldn't get involved.
Yeah.
So he was distracted by another butterfly. And it was like there was always a thing to keep me focused on something else. That's how I would get around that annoyance.
Yeah, that's fair one.
I was next. Honestly, I'm going to look to Modrons in a lot of ways for this. I really think these guys are more focused on law and order as opposed to chaos. Good to evil, I feel like, is a matter of perspective. We've said that more than once on this podcast. But the idea here is that you can have an evil one or a good one. Sure, that's fine. I don't see a whole lot of chaotic autognomes unless the wiring has gone bad or like it's clearly a flaw that they have.
Yeah.
Everything construct in D&D tends to be neutral or law. I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm playing an autognome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the idea of almost like a childlike simplicity to them, right? Like coming to the game with no real alignment, no real bonds or flaws, right? Because they just left their creator behind. So they are exploring a new world that they have never really seen before. And so, it's that whole nature versus nurture thing, right? And I think it can make an excellent kind of...
Are you my mommy?
I mean, maybe not that much.
Can I
Can
call you mommy?
Yeah.
Are you my daddy? Yes, I'm your daddy.
More like a 13-year-old kid that was locked in a vault, right? A movie with Brendan Fraser. Blast from the Past.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jesus, that was a deep dive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't seen that.
No.
Terry doesn't watch movies.
Yeah.
He watches porn.
Terry
Terry makes porn. He doesn't watch movies. So that one didn't get the
they believe you, those people at home, when you say these things,
as well they should.
We never make up lies here.
By the way, you can order the bondage furniture.
Yeah.
But I go with the flow kind of character. I think it might even make an excellent type of character for someone who's new, right? And still kind of finding their feet and finding their flow.
Sure.
Right? You get a blank slate and you can kind of see what you like and what you don't like.
Right, yeah, it kind of gives you an excuse to be curious on things, where the player might genuinely be curious about stuff. I remember saying to Dan a couple of years ago now, because he played D&D for so long, he already knew all of the monsters, he knew everything, and he had this habit in our game, and where he would say out loud what it is, as the kind of the clues
he
are
still
coming
fucking does that.
And I remember having to say to Dan, I genuinely do not know what this thing is, and I'm going through that childlike wonder of finding out. And so, leaning into that's if you genuinely do have that, the curiosity through the player character is a perfect avenue for that. Segueing onto exploration, I like it from the other side as well, as if you are a very experienced player playing a player character who would have that same curiosity, because you can actually use it to guide the more junior players. You can be like, Papa, what happens if we eat the mushroom? I don't know. What happens if we eat them? Let's investigate the mushrooms. You can kind of use it in that sense as well.
As far as exploration goes, I mean, the thing that I'm looking at is what kind of skills naturally go with autognomes, and I don't think nature and survival are on the high end of medicine unless you were built for that. That's not what's coming to mind here. I lean into history, right? And even like Arcana. If you are a spellcasting autognome, which is weird to me, a construct that, you know what, that's a whole other rant. I'm moving past it. I'm thinking more about what is my robot going to be good at? What is my droid going to naturally be good at? I'm going to pump into perception, especially because I'm going to be the one on watch. Everybody else is going to get a full 8 hours, and I'm going to sit there for 6 hours. My head just like, do you think their heads turn 360 degrees? Because I would like that to happen.
I don't see a problem with that.
It's not really game-breaking if you do have that.
No, like there's nothing at all in 5th edition about what direction you're facing.
Yeah.
So why not?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just to have them stand in the middle of the camp and their head just slowly rotates around.
Oh, would you be
Like
able
a
to
security
sleep
camera?
when that was happening near you?
Oh my god.
Probably not.
I like the idea. I like the idea of them having like a hooded lantern on the top of their head, so it's like a fucking spotlight, like it's a lighthouse going around camp.
I love it.
All right.
Kyle, it's you for exploration.
Honestly, I think they make great tool monkeys because with the specialized design, they get 2 tool proficiencies, which can come super in handy in terms of exploration, right? Like you take the cartographer's tools and I don't know what else, map making.
Well,
that's the same thing.
Well, it depends on which class you're going to take, what your background is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a thief, obviously the rogue is going to pick thieves' tools, right? You're going to get a healer's kit if you are a cleric. Like there are some things just go hand in hand. The druid with the herbalism kit.
Yeah, but those get built in, right? This is 2 tool choices on top of that.
Torturer's tools.
Yeah, I don't want to play your homebrew, but okay.
Okay, lastly for combat then, I kind of touched on my combat ideas earlier, but I'll just kind of recap. I think you should fight your own fight. I think you have opportunities here to, lean into things like the fact that you don't need to breathe. Put yourselves in situations where breathing would be essential for the enemy, whether it be water, collapsed mine, whatever, and lean into it that way. And then just know that the rest of the party is likely going to lean on you to be the guinea pig. You're probably going to have to run out there and take that first hit of poison damage or something so that everybody else can get a round off. But I'll give you guys a chance to kind of add your own thoughts as well, Adam.
I like the idea of, clearly I'm going to go for one of the big hit dice classes. It's going to be Barbarian, Paladin, Fighter, or Ranger because I am going to be the guinea pig. I am going to be front row center. Oh, the green dragon's poison breath doesn't work against me. Haha. Right, but his tail does. The bite still works. I am getting hit by those things. Yeah. So, you're in the way of harm more often than not. I feel like if I'm a back row caster with these guys, a lot of that poison shit, it's just not going to matter. Mm-hmm. Although I do like the idea of being a druid. It's like, do you think this mushroom is poisonous? Let me find out. Sensors say no.
Love it.
Detecting cyanide.
I'd play a monk or a barbarian. It's a great class for it, right? Because with the unarmored defense plus their natural AC, it kind of bugs me too. Like they're protected by a thin sheet of metal. How does that give you an extra 3 AC?
The idea, a breastplate's technically a thin sheet of metal, but it depends on how they're constructed, right?
I'm picturing like tin though.
Yeah,
this thing isn't making it out of steel.
Because by IRL history, the crossbow basically made plate armor obsolete overnight. So we still forget about that. So
I like the idea too. If you're getting shot by crossbows, you pull out, and the hole is still there until you magically get healed, right? Your hit points regenerate, but you're still dented. Yeah. And your coat of paint has been all scratched to shit, and you look like most of the cars I've ever driven.
Okay, great. Well, that brings us to the end of Autognomes. Kyle, you're up next. What do you have for us?
Today we will be talking about the Plasmoids. So, Plasmoids, if you want to know what they look like, they are gray blobs. And then, if they feel like it, they can form into humanoid shapes by hardening their outsides.
They can be other colors.
Yeah, they can by absorbing dyes through their pores.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah. Oh. So you can pick whatever color you want to be, and then you can just expel it when you're done.
That's neat.
Yeah. And when they do harden their form, the outer layer of their gushy being, I guess is the way to put it, they can wear clothes and armor as well, and wield weapons and everything.
Now, do they get, like, are they always kind of amorphous with, like, clearly defined limbs? Or can they be an actual humanoid, like a changeling? Like, can they look like a human?
No, they still look like Ooze, just in human form. Like, so
Flubber.
with one of their abilities.
Oh, they have the little flubber guys.
Yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
And with their ability, they can choose, to have one arm or two, one leg or two. They can choose not to have a head and just keep all their central ganglia, which is basically how they sense the world, right, inside. And they can manipulate it, so they'll take away their ooze away from some of their ganglia to increase their hearing, so they could hear like a butterfly flapping its wings 100 feet away is the example they give in the book. But then it's also super sensitive to like regular noises, so
they can be easily deafened and shit as well.
Yeah, and it like hurts it. But I mean, that's also from older editions. They don't really cover that in here.
I was going to say that's really, really specific and noodly for 5th edition.
Yeah.
I love it.
Then you could get like a free thing, like you could use your interaction just to be like, I yell in its face and hit it,
and it takes thunder damage from the yell.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But I mean, by the same token, it also can protect itself from having that happen by increasing its mass around the ganglia.
How long does it take to do that? Is that an action?
It's one action. Yeah.
Okay. All right. It's weird. That's weird. I don't know how I feel about Plasmoids are the one that I'm like, what the fuck? What is this?
Yeah.
I'm going to get into it. I have more than a couple problems with him in general. So, I mean, in terms of lore, there is precious little in 5e. The whole write-up in the book for them is just telling you mostly how they eat and reproduce and what they look like and how they form. There is nothing about their society. Absolutely nothing about that. But I did find in 2e that they did go a little bit more into it. And basically they have societies that are hierarchy based, but then they also don't follow hierarchies. Like there's no real meaning to them, but they follow them. They don't fight each other because it is thought that they all came from the original Plasmoid and they all just sprouted off. So when they mate, basically what they do is they go up to another Plasmoid, they touch, and then the first one divides itself and then passes on like a little bit of memories to the new one. I don't understand why they touch, because you're not like passing on new genes. You're just cloning yourself to make a new Plasmoid.
Do you become a small creature for a while after doing that?
I think in the older editions you would have. In this one, you just get to pick whether you're a medium or a small creature in the very beginning. But it also, like in the older editions too, it said you could change your size by just absorbing matter. Right?
There were all sorts of funky rules. That sounds like 3.5 bullshit.
Yeah.
And I love that level of ridiculous shit for my world building. Fuck, am I glad I don't have to play with that shit in 5th edition.
So only one of them divides? So Kyle, if I was to touch you, do we both divide?
You want to hold a hand.
Or just you divide?
From what I read, it sounds like just you divide. Like you decide that you're going to procreate, so you find someone else to touch.
Like I need a supervisor
Yeah. But maybe it's like a mutual process, so they both divide by mitosis.
If we each give a quarter of ourselves, then we're each 75%, and now we have a 50%er over here.
Yeah.
And everybody go to the fucking dump and grab some organic material. We got to re-up.
Yeah. Right? It's so weird. They don't have a sense of taste or smell, right? So they can just
they're my two favorite senses. Right? So, fuck this.
I think that's the same for a lot of people. So also it goes on to say that even though they live in a hierarchy, but they don't follow it, they also love money and power, treasure and power, right? But it follows it up by saying they'll also just eat things of importance for other cultures because they don't know that it is important.
They're not just like, fuck you and your ancestral sword.
Yeah, it's just like I'm hungry. This is the closest thing. So, but what do they keep for treasure? What does a ball of ooze keep for treasure? And why do they love power if they don't care about hierarchies in their own society? It's
funny that they would like covet wealth as well and then not follow hierarchies, because hierarchies, part of it is to protect assets, right? Thou shalt not steal my stuff. So like it seems weird that they would want wealth, but they wouldn't pursue a structure that kind of protects that.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they want shit that is definitively uniquely solid. For example, titanium or something that is like not gold, because gold is fairly malleable, right? They want something that's hard. Gems, for example, are worth a lot to them because gems are absolutely rigid and they shatter and break. They can't mold at all. That would be interesting and unique to something like a plasmoid. That's where I'm coming from with that. The idea of the hierarchy as well would be like, it's weird that you guys are living like this. All right, let's do it. This will be neat and funny. And like, it's more of a quirk and an interest than it is a necessity.
Yeah.
Right? Like, now I'm a captain. What does that mean? Right? When do I get to be captain? How'd you become captain? I'll be captain. Right? And then who's going to be captain next? Right? Like,
well, the funny thing about that is it also says that they are often employed as politicians because they can just speak for hours about nothing at all. And they speak by pulling in air and then forming their ooze so that when they squeeze the air out, it makes the sound.
well, it's time to go filibuster.
But politics,
Yeah, kind of like that.
It's so strange but politics really
Is all hierarchies.
is all hierarchy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hold on. Maybe they're just in politics like they're mediators because, and bear with me on this because this is a fucking stretch. The idea that because they are not solid, they can see things from other people's perspectives. Their point of view is malleable as well.
Yeah.
So they make good negotiators.
Maybe
I'm really stretching.
maybe-
Well, in the
maybe-
sentence.
People can still see things from other people's perspective, but still disagree on it. Like,
Yeah.
hey, I know what you're saying, but I just do not think that's the best course of action. You know, but I don't
Like,
know. The whole thing's fucked.
I understand your pumpkin spice latte. I don't agree with it. It is bullshit and I hate it.
But I protect your right to heaven.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will judge you while you drink it. But by God, go ahead and drink it. You basic bitch.
It sounds from the wording that they are employed simply to enact filibusters.
It sounds like it, right?
Yeah, because they can talk for hours about nothing
Talk
important.
for days and
Yeah.
they never come to any resolution.
Yeah.
Or then they decide the whole thing's stupid and they don't care who's in charge anymore.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Oh my God. The fucking College of Eloquence bard with this would be fucking insufferable.
It would.
To just argue a point and then just go, I've decided I don't care anymore.
It would, I convinced you? Oh, that's boring. Then just turn around and walk away.
I've changed sides.
So the stereotypes for them are their legendary loyalty, apparently. And when you make friends with them, they're friends with you for life. So that's nice. They also have ravenous hunger, and they can't smell or taste anything, so it really doesn't matter to them what they eat.
Eat my poo.
Yeah, as long as they can take it all in. They love treasure and power, are easily entertained and fascinated because of their childlike curiosity. I also wonder, does this mean they're gullible? Would you be able to easily fool them?
Yes. Fuck, this is borderline Kender territory, and I'm not happy about it. These guys sound obnoxious as fuck from top to bottom. I got a question. They can't taste it, but if I give a plasmoid a fucking jalapeno pepper, are they gonna react to it? Will they still acknowledge the spice? Do they not get the flavor, but they still get the burn?
I think they will still get the burn because that's pain.
Okay.
I honestly don't know, because it would all depend on their biology, right? Because like for birds, capsaicin doesn't matter. It does not affect them at all. They can't.
Yeah.
They don't taste spice, right? So
I feel like
I think it comes down to biology. That is.
We're asking all the right questions.
Jeremy Crawford, show your fucking work. I want to see your notes on this.
So for racial bonuses and mechanics, first, they are an ooze type creature that can be either small or medium, like I said. You get to choose this on creation, but in previous editions, you could change your size. So they could increase their mass by taking in a bunch of stuff, or they could just expel a bunch of mass to make themselves small creatures, to change their size at will, essentially. Their walking or oozing speed, I guess depending on form, is 30 feet.
Do they leave a snail trail?
Yes, they do.
That is
their poop. They basically secrete all their waste products from pores, and then it just follows them behind.
I have so many fucking horrible ideas for a campaign with that shit.
So that's just constant, just
Yeah.
like snails would. But now they say, take my hand. Oh, God, no. Please, I'll die.
So they are amorphous, so they can squeeze into spaces that are at least an inch wide. However, to do so, they have to drop whatever they're carrying.
Unless it's smaller than an inch. They could carry a coin through, I guess.
It
It doesn't say that anywhere,
Yeah.
but like that makes sense as a DM.
Yeah. Although I don't see that being super useful at any time.
I don't know. Carry the end of this wick through.
I would do it for such things as they can maybe go inside of the lock and explain what they see to the rogue, something like that.
Now,
Interesting.
we've talked about their ganglia as far as hearing and whatnot goes. I'm assuming this affects sight as well?
Yeah, I'll get into that later, but they can detect light. That is the saying. So I think it's like light, dark. It's not so much sight.
So they can see like silhouettes of shit, but maybe not details. They're not going to be able to see color?
Yeah, I don't think so. Because they don't really have eyes.
So that would say that no, they couldn't get into the lock and look around, right?
Yeah, fair point. Yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into that a bit later. So they actually next. So part of Amorphous. Part of Amorphous is it also gives them advantage when initiating or breaking a grapple.
Absolutely. That makes perfect sense.
Which is pretty great.
Also, fuck you for trying to grapple a plasmoid. That's just fucking dumb. And now you're covered in snail trail.
They also get 60 feet of dark vision, which is fucking stupid to me because they do not have eyes. They can't form corneas to like take in the light and, make sense of the image in front of them.
What's interesting to me is that dark vision. So the way that dark vision works is that you see darkness as if it's low light and low light as if it's bright light.
Yeah.
So however they would picture bright light would just affect like you're just doing it in the scaling down the level of light. But it doesn't make any sense for things like drow or anything to have dark vision either. Because like you're not seeing specifically, you still see it all in grayscale and it's still technically dim light. And a lot of DMs get this wrong. They think that there's just the two. See it and then dark vision, see dark. Or like see in the dark. And that's not what it is really.
Yeah.
You get the general impression of things. Like, I feel like even with dark vision, you're going to recognize, or you're still going to be surprised by that chair in your bedroom that looks like a person because all the clothes that are on it.
Right.
That's still going to fucking affect you because you can see it as opposed to being completely blind.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that plasmoids can still get dark vision and be fooled by it. I want to say that they would just have dark vision all of the fucking time.
I don't think they should have vision, period. I don't think, because it's not part of their natural biology. If you look at all the art, there's no eye.
I want them to have tremor sense.
It's basically, so the ganglia is essentially a nervous system, right? So they can feel, hear, and it's
they're sensing
painful to them.
vibrations, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so they should have tremor sense.
Yeah.
Right? They should have tremor sense. And then also, I think they should have advantage on perception checks that rely on sound.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because they can change their ganglia to make them more receptive to sounds.
Yep.
But I also understand why wizards didn't do that because they are trying to simplify characters and gameplay. And so I think throwing that in is a little much.
Yeah, honestly, also as a DM, describing it differently. So the player comes with the plasmoid who can't really see detail. Like there's a large dark image in front of you that is roughly 6 feet tall and broad-shouldered. And you say it all for the player. And there's like, okay. And then you turn to the elf beside me and go, so the orc standing there. The plasmoid player still has all the fucking information. Right?
Yeah.
And no matter how good you are at not metagaming, you're still gonna hear that info and make assumptions, especially in combat. And for sake of ease, sure, fine, give them dark vision. I just think they should have dark vision all the time, just for the quote-unquote idea of sensing shit around you. But you're right, I like tremor sense better.
Yeah. So they can also hold their breath for an hour by drawing a pocket of air essentially into them. They have natural resistance to both poison and acid and advantage to avoiding the poison condition, and self-shape, which I went over earlier, which basically they can go from an amorphous blob to a humanoid shape that has either 1 or 2 arms, 1 or 2 legs, and a head.
It's 1 or 2. It's not.
So, yeah, you can pick.
No, I'm saying it can't be 3 arms though.
Nah, it just says 1 or 2, unfortunately. But they also, part of it is they can grow a pseudopod out of them.
So can I.
As a bonus action. I bet you can.
It's the bonus action. Don't laugh at that shit, God.
It can be up to 6 inches wide and 10 feet long.
There it is.
Which is kind of nice. As part of the same bonus action, you can use it to open and close a door or container, manipulate an object, so flip a switch or what have you.
Imagine.
I'd
never stand
up. Or pick up or drop a tiny object. It can't attack, use magic items, or lift anything heavier than 10 pounds.
Why is my sword hilt wet? Never mind.
10 pounds is a lot, though.
Yeah, it's a decent amount. I think that's basically Mage Hand, isn't it?
Mage has 5
I think
pounds?
it's
No,
5 pounds.
is that Tensor's floating discus 5? I can't remember. There are rules for this shit.
So for role-playing, I think if you're going to play this character, they're going to be fucking weird and out there because they don't have two of the most important senses that we do as humans, right? So scent is the closest sense tied to memory, and then there's also eating. Think about how many rituals we have that revolve around food.
Yeah.
Right? Banquets, feasts, family dinners, all that stuff. It doesn't matter what kind of background you come from. Food is always important, and it's a large asset of our family structure.
Do they only consume organic material? Does it say?
It does not specify.
Well, shit. That's impressive.
Yeah, I imagine they can do anything because they are acid, right? Anything a gelatinous cube can do, I assume they can do as well.
Yeah.
Can anything damage them that they absorb or poison them? Like lantern oil, for example, if they suck that into them?
There's no rules written for that, so...
Acid?
Yeah. Well, yeah, they have resistance to acid damage.
Yeah, they're resistant to poison and acid, but I don't know, you get real fucky. Oh, you ate the barrel of gunpowder? Okay, they cast fireball on you.
Yeah.
Here we go. You could get fucky with it.
I mean, but if they cast fireball on you and it's inside you, would it really explode? Because an explosion needs oxygen.
But this is magic. It's not physics.
Yeah,
So,
I guess.
yeah.
I guess that's true.
I got really loud there, though I hadn't spoken for a while, and that was what I was going to get going. Actually!
So a big thing in the older edition, too, is that they had to worry about drying out. They needed water constantly, and in desert conditions, they took 1d8 damage per day because it dries out. They need that layer of mucus around them, like a snail or a slug. So it has a protective coating.
That is delicious.
Yeah.
I like that.
In terms of combat tactics, unfortunately, I don't think this is a very good race for combats or lineage for combat because, I don't know, I would want to take advantage of the amorphous ability, but you have to drop everything every time you want to use it to squeeze into something, right? I like the advantage against being grappled and grappling someone, and I would use it. I'd probably go for a monk with this because you don't really need to carry all that much stuff. Mm-hmm. But
that, and there are rules for how long it takes to don and doff armor. And can you imagine every time you go through a keyhole, you then have to pause the fucking exploration of the dungeon for 10 more fucking minutes while you get all your armor and shit on?
Okay, yeah. I have a question about that. Would they actually need to don it? Because, they go into an amorphous blob and then they form themselves so they can just crawl into the armor and then just form their leg into the legs and arms and bodies.
That is a strong point.
That is okay. Now you're arguing rules is written versus rules is intended. For look, the rule of cool. Me as a DM, yes, you just your way back into the armor. Mm. But rules is written. If I have got a player at the table that's going to throw a fucking fit about that, then yeah, technically
that's going to be a case by case.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like this is a dwarf and there's going to be one at every table, right? So
yeah. I just honestly, after looking at the other two lineages that we're covering today, this one is definitely a step down from the other ones.
You think so?
Oh yeah, especially in terms of combat and
there's
overall usefulness.
Well, you see, okay. I have thoughts. Do you want to roll initiative on these? Are you done? Is there more breakdown?
No, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, let's roll.
Oh, that is a 1.
What did I get? 11?
You got an 11, Kyle with a 15. All right.
Coming up big. All right.
Going first on your own questions, as is tradition.
So for a quest, I would probably have a rogue ooze that's going out there and absorbing other oozes and then taking their power and memories and then is slowly trying to use that hierarchy to become ultimate leader of the oozes or the plasmoids.
Yeah, I like that. I like
the idea of an ooze. There was never an ooze originally, and does not want to stay as an ooze because I feel like this would be me. And so it would be about trying to get back to your original form. You can make it more challenging by being that you're away from your home, so the people around you don't necessarily know you. But I feel like the only thing I could take from this was that I would never want to be one of the Plasmoids?
Plasmoids, yeah.
Plasmoids. And so my biggest quest inspiration was actively trying not to be one all the way through the adventure. So
This is the worst. This is the worst. This is the worst.
It was forced upon me.
Okay, all right, bear with me. I've got a backstory for this guy. So originally, I was merely a puddle, and I was experimented on by, let's say, an artificer or a wizard or something, and they discovered that I had the ability to grow these gangly and change in shape form. I wasn't just another green slime that they assumed I was, right? So, or a gray ooze. Gray ooze is literally a thing that's like a friggin' low-level bullshit monster, right? You're an amorphous gray blob on this, and they realize that, oh, we can dye you, we can do other things that the other oozes can't. And then they'll understand that there's a certain limited level of sentience as I grow up and hit adulthood. Is there anything about lifespan for these guys?
About a century, it said.
Okay, so, I mean, you reach adulthood at what, 18, 19, 20, something like it's roughly human.
Yeah.
So, like, a wizard experiments on me, then suddenly I start to be able to communicate and whatnot by bubbling out words and shit. And then slowly I become kind of generally bipedal, so I'm able to walk around and I want to be what these solid forms are. I want to be one of you. I'm the only one of my kind. I don't know where I come from. And I just want to be like everybody else. And it bothers me that I'm different. I can't quite see. I have no sense of taste or smell, but I can pretend to eat through a mouth I kind of create.
Yeah.
To try to blend in a little bit. And it's not that I want to be human, it's that I just don't want to be different. I don't like other people pointing out how different my character is. And I get very, very latched on to the idea of there's a right way and a wrong way, and I started my life wrong. Like, there's order, there's boundaries, there's solid shape, whereas I have no front or back or inside or outside, right? And I'm trying to find definition for who I am, so I'm like really latching onto the idea of being lawful.
Okay. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like it.
That's literally the entire fucking backstory for Odo from Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
If you haven't watched DS9 yet, Terry, you fucking should.
I mean, like, I have seen it in the 90s. Wasn't my favorite one. But I know it is your favorite one, though. So.
We're gonna God,
Well, it wasn't my favorite one when I was like 8 years old.
Yeah,
so it might be
sure,
now,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, there's a 5-season war arc to it. That's like one of the very first like episodic kind of shows that was on television at the time.
I'll probably actually love it, to be honest. It's just, there's so much.
There's so much. Yeah.
Gardener's World in my case. Go on, Kyle.
I just finished watching all of the reboot of DuckTales.
Oh, yeah.
It was everything I needed. It was like legit good, and I don't know why.
All right.
I hate it when you go back to shows like that and there's nowhere near as good as what you thought.
Yeah.
I watched Thundercats
Oh,
recently.
no.
Fuck, that used to be
Painful.
so good.
I did that with Masters of the Universe. He-Man, like...
Yeah.
Oh,
The new one? Or
No,
like
no,
the
no,
original?
The original one. I'm like, is this... The old Ninja Turtles from like 89 does not hold up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's
Rough.
painful.
I'm pretty
Go on,
sure
Kyle.
He-Man was designed just for a toy line.
That is most cartoons of the 80s.
Okay, so for role-playing, I think I pretty much went into it, but I do have a character idea as well. I liked the idea of, this ooze that has just been watching everybody else and really likes, kind of like you, looking at all these new shapes. So it becomes a druid just so it can learn how to wild shape into every other animal out
That's
there.
really fucking cool.
And then that's its entire motivation for going through adventures and doing all this stuff, just so it can learn about new animals to turn into them.
I love it. I would lean into the loyalty thing, but of course the way they express that is not going to be anything like any of us would imagine. You would just have this weird, creepy ooze that's maybe always stood next to you, or always just slightly behind you, like just there all the time.
No sense of personal space.
Absolutely none, because they're loyal to you and they have to protect you. Or it's the other way, where if they do not trust you because they have loyalty to somebody else, that they show the same behavior, that they're watching them closely always. And this idea of, I don't know if he really likes me or really fucking hates me, but he's always right there.
I am going to hope that I've got a Furbolg or a Goliath in the party, because they can carry weight like a large sized creature, so that we could just have me, the barbarian in a barrel, strapped to his back. So every time the goblins, well, there's 8 of us and 3 of you. 4 of us. And they just rip the lid off the barrel.
Can you imagine if you saw that?
Like Zoidberg from Futurama.
I'm out.
Yeah, without the shell, when it's real pink and squishy.
Oh, I like that.
What do we got next? Exploration, I think, is next.
Exploration. The amorphous thing could come in handy.
Super handy. That's the key to this character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even expand any further than that.
No, I mean, you want to be one of the exploration classes for this, which are, off the top of my head, rogue, monk, based on movement and the slow fall and all that shit, and ranger. That's it. So, I mean, you are going to pick up survival and nature and some of that shit. You're the person that's going to go forward ahead of the party and check for traps. Investigation, I think, would be big for these guys, even though they don't have fucking eyes.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that too, because I think they would be super curious about everything.
Yeah. So perception, investigation. I wouldn't be looking at acrobatics and athletics and stuff. I don't think they'd give a fuck.
Yeah.
Right? They would probably want to know history. So what's this? What's this? What's this? So they'd have a background and shit, right? So yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking.
All right. Combat. The resistances help, so that's great. I'm
going to grapple everything because they're not going to grapple back.
Yeah, that's all I'm going to do.
Yeah, and then what can we do for a rule for where they can go through the spaces, an inch size there? What can we do for a rule at the table of, can I get into the enemy's backpack here? Can I get into their pouches and stuff?
At this point, I'm going to, as a DM, turn to the player and say, yes, of course you can, but if you can do it, then I can do it too.
Right.
If we introduce that into our fucking repertoire here at the table, then you will have pixies in your bag and you will have oozes in your boots. And there will be we will start to get into that shit. So if you want to I crawl into the ogre's nostrils and then get big again and explode his head from the inside, great. Thank you for introducing that to my table. Now I can play with it too. And that usually stops my creative players dead in their fucking tracks.
Yeah.
Right, because I really like that. That's super neat and useful. And I would say, yes, you can totally do that. But there would be a gentleman's agreement to not pull that shit on the big bad evil guy at level 20. Right? Do it to a lieutenant as a really cool, end of tier 1 set piece, boom.
Yeah.
But, don't think you're going to get away with that shit.
Yeah. Well, the trouble with that idea with these is that when they go amorphous, it doesn't change their size. They're still a medium-sized creature that's just a pile of ooze, right?
Yeah, but
it's not becoming a puddle this big.
But they kind of
sneak
do
up
it a little bit at a time, right? They'll work their way through their lock or whatever. Get into.
Does it say anything? Do they move at half speed if they do that?
No.
No. Fuck. I feel they should, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise,
or
they're just
difficult terrain. If you're going through a smaller
it should be like that, right? Otherwise, you're just essentially walking through a door. Just like you walk up and put your center mass pseudopod into the keyhole and then slurp out the other end of it, right?
Yeah.
Without losing any movement speed seems weird.
Yeah, but you lose all your stuff.
Sure.
So you are naked on the other side of that wall.
But then
if there's an enemy there, you're fucked. You got no backup if that door's locked and they can't get through.
Terminate to it? Like a rapier out of your hand?
Soft ooze, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, they can make it hard, but they make it hard like your skin is hard. You can poke the enemy with your fleshy pseudopod.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this was a harebrained scheme that they didn't think all the way fucking through.
Yeah.
That also sums up my opinion on Spelljammer in 5th edition as well. In theory, great. In practice, you got most of the way there. Come hit me when you're out of the draft period.
Yeah.
So
I think reading the 2nd edition version of it, I think someone was just really flexing their biology degree, right? Because they went into detail. Yeah, they went into detail about all that stuff and how they eat, and then you imagine
that does feel very 3.5 to me.
Yeah.
Very, very Pathfinder, where they're going to get into the weird nitty-gritty bullshit because somebody read a book.
Yeah.
Right?
Fuck you and your education.
All right, I think that brings us to the Thri-Kreen now. And
I hate that name so much.
It is such a horrible, horrible name. They've also been called Tri-kreen by people who I feel misread it.
I had a toe fungus I think I took Thri-kreen for.
Or you can essentially think of them as mantis people. So they're described as being insectile with 2 pairs of arms and a hard, how do I say that?
Exoskeleton?
Triton carapace.
I think it's chitin.
And
Chitin?
I think it's chitin.
Yeah.
But they can change color to camouflage as long as it's like a natural color. These guys are praying mantis people. They've got compound eyes, antenna, mandibles, secondary smaller set of arms. It doesn't say that necessarily in like the lore section, but it is reflected in their mechanics. They've got normal arms out of the shoulders, then out of like the middle of the rib cage, they've got smaller little like T-Rex arms, kind of like the Glabrezu, the goat-ish demon does.
Mm-hmm.
They got 3 fingers on each hand, and that includes a thumb. Their legs have 2 joints, so they got knees like us, but then it also like the backward joint that doubles back. Like I'm trying to think. You mostly just see that on fucking insects. The
grasshoppers, I think, have it.
Kinda, right? But then they've got 2 toes that point forward and 1 stabilizing toe that points backwards. So they got weird little Y-shaped footprints that they make. They do not wear clothing, and they have no need for it. But all of their art has them wearing really long loincloths, which makes me think that these guys are fucking endowed. The lore from 5th edition is really, really shitty. They don't sleep, but they do sit inactive the same way that the Autognome does, except it's for the full 8 hours. There's nothing about a shorter period of time. They're completely aware. Well, they sit motionless like that as well. They've got a weird speech thing, which is clacking their mandibles and waving their antenna, and that is how they communicate. Hard stop. Some people can learn to understand them to a degree, but it's difficult. But regular humanoid mouths cannot replicate this communication. You essentially treat them like Chewbacca. You can understand them, but you will never speak the Thri-Kreen language.
Mm-hmm.
To make up for it, they have mild telepathy. Because, of course they do. Why the fuck not? Let's make it complicated. So I went digging through lore from previous editions, and I discovered that these guys are an ancient race that have been around since even before the Mind Flayers. They're one of the oldest races in existence, by a damn sight. And that's saying something. These guys are old as elves, maybe older, right? So they prefer dry and warm climates. They're nomadic hunters from Shar. Shar is... it's a subcontinent, I guess, in the Forgotten Realms. Like, it's the big desert grasslands area that's just kind of wild and full of herds of beasts traveling over the uncivilized landscapes through this kind of this wild area here. They're 4.5 to 7 feet tall, on 100 to 350 pounds. Yeah, like, they can get fucking big.
Yeah.
Their carapace is actually an exoskeleton. In previous lore, it doesn't say anything about that in 5th edition. But I do like that it's incredibly difficult to determine males from females. So I assume that females also are really well endowed beneath the loincloth. And that's just hilarious. I'm trying to figure out where the Thri comes from, and I assume it's because they're almost tripods.
Yeah. Oh, they mate by docking.
God, I hope so. Thank you for doing the hand motion for that too, Kyle. Nobody can see that, but it really, really brought it together in my head. Thank you. Their carapace can change colors between hues you find in the savanna or in grasslands. So you're getting yellows, browns, greens. You're not getting a whole lot of like blue like the ocean or gray like rocks. Like they are grasslandish and desert feel. And it says in previous editions they wore belts and harnesses to be able to hold stuff on their body, but they don't have pockets. They have straps that shit dangles from. It also says that they're poisonous. They're not anymore. Well, they are and they aren't. The ones in the monster manual, the enemies, they have a poisonous bite. You as a player do not get that. They had limited psionics that would let them communicate and instinctively know directions in previous editions. So, like, they're not going to get lost. They could just magically cast, I think it was no direction and location was a spell, which we don't have anymore, and they could just inherently do that. So, in my head, these guys are almost like Minotaurs. Like, they just know which way is north all of the time. And that's a flavor that's not game-breaking. I'm gonna let that happen as a DM.
I think it makes sense.
It does say that they're immune to sleep spells in previous editions. Not anymore. That's not going to be a thing. The Autognome too. You don't sleep, but if someone puts you to sleep, you sleep.
Yeah, right.
Elves aren't like that.
Yeah, that's weird.
That's a fucking
because if they don't
choice.
sleep, how can they even sleep?
Yeah.
Right.
Now they do have a couple of favored weapons, and you see this in a lot of the artwork for Thri-Kreen, and it's the Githka, which is a long-ass, like, double-ended spear that has almost like a half-moon blades on the end of them. They're really, really cool. Like, each one ends at a point, like it's a crescent moon. So there's 2 points that face upward, or outward, rather, I guess, on both ends, and they wield them with, like, a multi-attack, so they hit with both ends, like Darth Maul, kind of. Speaking of Phantom Menace, you started us there, and I'm bringing it back around.
Well, hey.
We've got to rescue the podcast somehow. The other one is the Chatkchas. Because fuck. And these...
Sorry, did you just say the same word twice in a row?
These things are, like, think ninja stars, except far heftier. They do, like, a d6 damage. So they're not, like, little shuriken.
I thought they were like boomerangs, because they come back, don't they?
Not... I mean, some things say yes, not in 5th edition. But they've got 3 points. So, again, there's the Thri idea that's almost the Tri-kreen. Everything is in weird, like, multiples and shit for them, but yet also not. And there's not a whole lot of thematic consistency.
Yeah.
With these guys. They do have short lifespans. They become mature at 5 or 6, middle-aged at 12 to 16, and they max out at 35. You do not find one older than 35. They show no emotions as humans understand them, although their clacking and antenna movements increase when they're agitated, and they do understand and sense and react to danger. They have no strong bend towards good or evil, but they're very chaotic, which gives them a reputation for being brutal and savage, but their chaos is not like a goblin's chaos. Their chaos is they're nomadic. They follow their heart. They go with the breeze. Whatever this moment now requires, that's what they do. There's no overarching plan. There's not, shoring up and we're gonna bury this for later and come back to it. No, they're just gonna do it now. That's it. There's very little forethought, but they've got a long history, like a racial history as well, which I'll get into in a second here. They really do see the world through the lens of predator and prey, and they are noble hunters. Everything else is either a hunter alongside them or prey. Sometimes Thri-Kreen can be prey, and they do not give a shit. They have really no mercy. But they also don't show any cruelty either. If you're in need, then you must not be suited to survival. If you live, see you tomorrow. And that's it. But also, if you do something to piss them off, they will write it and not go out for revenge. There's no vengeance from them. Right? The idea is that the world is its own judge. If I kill you for food, not for sport, and then not for punishment. There's no real understanding of complex concepts like devotion, honor, loyalty, or politics. They do have a pack leader. They roam in small packs. So there's one person in charge, but that's just the person that says, now we go this way. There's no real social structure involved. The small packs that they roam in are usually hatchmates because there's a lot of information about their life cycle, which is unnecessary in previous editions, but there are 200 or so eggs that are laid at once by a female who then abandons the eggs, and those that survive make it. Most don't. If you end up making it, then you are one of the tougher, you are one of the stronger, and you deserve to survive. The other ones from your clutch that also make it are also strong enough. You guys should team up and work as a pack. And so we do. Hard stop. So it's very logical like that. Sometimes packs will team up to briefly handle larger threats, but they don't stick together very long. Once the threat is taken care of, great, everybody go your own way again. And there are lone Thri-Kreen either from like packs that have been decimated or they've disagreed with the direction the pack was going. Oh, you're going north. I'm going to go west. And so they just break off and go their own direction. They will join up with another pack because, oh, you've survived. You must be worth hunting with. And that's it. Like, it's very matter of fact. Like I said, chaotic just means that they're nomadic and unreliable as a result of that. They're notoriously difficult to negotiate with because they already have the answer, and the answer is this. And there may not be a logic behind it as long as it makes sense to them. And with their own weird language, you don't understand what that logic is. They've just decided. I feel like this could be a real pain in the ass thing for players to do, so don't fucking do that.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, they're not territorial. considering that they're nomadic and they have these large swaths of land they hunt on, they don't particularly give a shit who else is on there. They simply share and respect those who live off the land and take issue with those who defile it. They get along really well with humans, centaurs, and wemmicks. Wemmicks are centaur lions. So top half human, bottom half four-legged lion. That's from previous editions. We don't get those in 5th edition yet. I bet they're coming. But I mean, I would swap them in for Leonin easily.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. They're out in the grasslands and deserts hunting and shit, and they're all kind of the same thing.
Yeah. It sounds like they're not territorial, but they will hunt you.
They will, but well, let me get to it. Gnolls, orcs, and what are called loxos are bad. Now, we have loxodons, and they're very calm and stately in 5th edition. Previous editions, we had loxos, which were elephant people again, but they had 2 trunks, and they were chaotic and evil and would just fuck up anything they get their hands on. They did not like Thri-Kreen. I feel like just based on the lore of loxodons, if a loxodon and a Thri-Kreen is in a party in 5th edition, they'll be friends. Like, there's nothing to make them enemies.
Yeah.
Even though you can find a lot of Thri-Kreen versus elephant people art online. Interestingly, though, they've got a complicated relationship with elves, and I'm going to get into that in just a second here. They hunt and eat rabbits and wild horses, those are a delicacy for them. They love wild horses. They'll also eat other herd beasts, but their favorite thing to eat is elves. Elves are very delicious, which is odd to me because they like things that live off the land, that are at one with nature. That's elves. That is what elves do. No, they don't give a shit. Elves are tasty.
You can't fight your stomach, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Mouth-wateringly good elves, I guess.
They might have tried to drow once, and then they just got hooked.
Like dark meat or light meat?
Yeah.
So...
Terrible.
Can we say that it's 2022? Am I allowed? It's 2023.
I don't know, Adam. I rely on you to update me on what that is this week.
Yeah, it's fantasy lineages. We're all right. They're cannibalistic when necessary. They'll even eat their own young if necessary, because if we're all starving to death, the adults can make more young later.
Yeah, it's like a lot of species, right?
Yeah.
Like kangaroos can reabsorb fetuses into their bodies.
Yeah, their pouches are gross.
Yeah, they can also carry 3 different babies in different stages of birth.
Yeah,
I always learn something here.
So these guys rarely get wanderlust or get sent out into the world. If they do, it's to learn info that's going to help their pack. The pack leader says, we need to learn this shit, go out and do this. Come back when you know it. Hard stop, that's it. That is the only reason why they move away from an established pack. Otherwise, they tend to just be, they either leave to go because there's a disagreement of what direction to go in, or everybody else got completely destroyed. Like, there are loners out there, but for the most part, no, they just stick with their group. We hunt together. They will often choose to team up with others that are not Thri-Kreen for safety or important missions, but they have no need for glory or treasure or fame. These things don't interest them. They also don't have any real sense of morality. Oh, it's an evil, crazy, despotic leader over there. It's going to... Okay, who gives a fuck? Are they bothering my grasslands? Yes, we'll fight them. No, I don't give a shit. So, these guys tend to be druids. Occasionally, they can learn about gods from nearby civilizations, and they will become clerics, but there's really no mention of them ever having access to really arcane magic. So, they're wisdom casters, more or less. I can see them also being rangers. That makes a lot of sense to me, as far as their casting ability goes.
Yeah.
If they can't speak arcane words, they can't really cast it, right?
Well, I mean, there's a verbal component for even divine shit as well,
Yeah.
but technically these guys could be fucking bards. Crickets sing, right? Like,
Yeah.
so thousands of years ago. So this is what pissed me off. Nothing so far about Spelljammer. This is a fucking afterthought that these guys were added because, and it's mentioned very briefly in previous editions, that thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, they were spread all over the crystal spheres. The crystal spheres are, if you don't know, that's where planetary systems live inside these crystal spheres. Your Spelljammer ship can leave the surface, go visit other planets inside this big-ass atmosphere. That's all the way around. And then you bust out into what's called wild space in your little atmosphere and gravity bubble on your Spelljammer ship. And then you end up floating on the currents of wild space, which is really poorly defined in 5th edition. We used to have phlogiston, which was just this like thick plasma almost that you would ride on. No, we don't have that shit anymore. They made it real fucking simple. It's wild space. Don't think about it. And if it's magic. A wizard did it. Fuck off. And then you can go from there to another crystal sphere. And inside that one is Eberron. Inside this one is Ravnica. Inside that one is Forgotten Realms. And in theory, every single one of the homemade, homebrew settings that has ever existed is a different crystal sphere.
I'm imagining just a bunch of snow globes.
Kinda.
Sure.
Right? Mm-hmm. But the entire cosmology is in there. Like, all of the different realms are within the sphere. Right. And you can, in theory, fly to the different realms.
It seems super lazy.
It's not only lazy writing, it's poorly defined, and I wish that Spelljammer and Planescape would just fucking replace the... You know what? That's another rant. We're talking about Thri-Kreen. These guys actually had spelljamming navies way, way, way back when that would wander from planetary system to planetary system. And they were known as the people of the Celestial Mantis. And their poetry and myths, even today, include incredibly detailed lore about the beginning of existence and all life. And they also tell tales of the Juna, which are the lost gods. And even now in the Spelljammer box set that was released, you get pictures and stuff of what's out there in wild space, and they include images of like the corpses of dead gods. Like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they were in Nowhere, which was a giant celestial skull that they had a city built inside of. Mm-hmm. Like, there are dead gods just like half rotten floating out there, ready for people to come by and get their god powers off them, right? These guys know about that shit. The Thri-Kreen remember that racially. So, from the Monster Manual, it talks about the alternative methods of communication, such as drawing pictures in sand or making pictures out of twigs or blades of grass. But why the fuck would you if you're telepathic? So they've got a full range of emotions. It's very clear about that.
Why would they create art if they're telepathic?
Well, why would they draw pictures to communicate if they're telepathic?
Instead of them saying, we should go around the mountain and then through the forest pass, they will draw it in the dirt so that you understand the map, instead of just saying telepathically, let's go around the mountain and through the forest pass.
Because it was before the telepathy?
No, it's the same fucking thing. Okay, they still have the telepathy in this.
There's a lot of crossing over, and
it's like two people wrote it.
Yeah.
And the second one,
nobody edited it. Nobody pure edited it.
Welcome to Spelljammer.
Yeah.
They do have a full range of emotions, but they're not prone to outbursts like humanoids are, which is fine. Sure. Okay. They kill to survive, not for sport. A lack of sleep, interestingly enough, is rumored to be why they have such short lifespans.
They have a full range of emotions?
Yeah.
Compassion?
They will have compassion, but it doesn't impact their decision making. Like, this is the fucking contradiction, right? Is the fact that they have no time for devotion or honor or...
they have no concept of good or evil.
No, and they will eat their own young. But they have the full range of human emotions. Don't worry about it. Like, I think that they can understand it and they would feel twinges of it. Like, oh, that person is openly weeping because somebody else just died. I'm a little sad. Like, I think they just don't feel it as deeply.
Right.
Like, they're sociopaths.
I'm really not.
Or it's more a matter of empathy, right? They understand what it is. They don't necessarily...
It's sympathy as opposed to empathy.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I feel bad because you feel bad, not I feel bad on your behalf. Right?
Yeah.
In the Monster Manual, they have D8 hit dice, which goes to show that they're probably not the squishy casters. They get 40-foot movement speed. Fuck you, you don't. You get 30 feet. They have telepathy out to 60 feet. Fuck you, you get 120 feet. So you get 10 foot less movement and double the telepathy. For no reason. They do get bonuses to perception, stealth, and survival. That's pretty on brand for Thri-Kreen. There's no mention of that shit in the lore for the playable race. They also have a language called Thri-Kreen, which I've discussed. That's not mentioned in the playable race either. You get common and one other of your choice, which seems ridiculous. Also,
especially since their telepathy, they don't need to speak the same language for it to work.
Yeah. Like this, they just have to be able to speak a language.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a few other things out there that are like that in the Monster Manual, but it seems real powerful.
Mm.
Now, some of them can cast spells, and they all seem to be wisdom-based spellcasters. They get Mage Hand, which is invisible, Blur, Magic Weapon, and Invisibility for self only. In their monster stat block, this is stuff I'd be looking at as a player to thematically stay on task. They get a poisonous bite in the monster manual. You don't. And there's actually information on the Githka and Chetkchka. Jesus fuck. In the monster manual, there's not anywhere else. Which is odd considering these are like lineage specific weapons that you get and they don't tell you anything about them. So flip to the monster manual. The Githka is essentially a D8 weapon. It does 1d8 plus whatever your mods are when you hit. It's a melee weapon. I would say it's probably finesse but not light, just based on the fact that it's a fucking Darth Maul spear, right? Like you need dex to be able to use it. The Chetkchkas, fuck off, have a 30-foot range, or up to 120 feet with disadvantage because you throw them, and they do d6 plus whatever your modifier is because you've thrown it, which is better than a lot of the thrown weapons, which are usually d4s, or just 1 if you're using a sling. As far as the bonuses and mechanics go for the playable race or the lineage, you do the whole ability score thing, 2 and 1 and 1 another, or 1 in 3. Your creature type is a monstrosity for no fucking reason. You're small or medium for no fucking reason. And your speed is 30 feet, although I feel like you should have more than that. There's also a standing leap ability that they get when they're monsters. You don't get that as a player, even though you've got these really cool, weird legs. You get 60 feet of dark vision, and it operates as regular dark vision. It does mention here that your secondary arms are slightly smaller now. They're not, I said T-Rex arms earlier. They're not quite T-Rex. They're just undersized, completely fully developed. But they can't wield weapons. They can manipulate an object, open or close a door or a container, pick up or set down a tiny object, and they can only wield light weapons. So if it has a light property to them. I would say this would be really fucking useful for your druid. They're holding a druidic focus in one hand and a shield and a couple of light weapons in other hands. Like, you're not worried so much about not having enough hands to do enough things. So you get sleepless, which you don't require sleep and can remain conscious during a long rest. You have to refrain from strenuous activity to gain the benefit of the rest, which means you don't even have to sit still and motionless. You can still do little things, like you can write in a journal and it still counts towards your long rest. You just do not sleep. Your telepathy says, we covered this, you have to there's a contradiction right in the fucking wording. I'm going to read this out loud. Without the assistance of magic, you can't speak non-Thri-Kreen languages you know. Which means that I guess with magic, you could speak, like if someone casts tongues, even though you don't have a fucking tongue. Anyways. You have the magic ability to transmit your thoughts mentally to only willing creatures that you can see within 120 feet of yourself. So that's the limitation on it.
Yeah. You're willing.
Yeah, and it creates a telepathic link. It does not say how many people you can connect to at a time. So you could, in theory, connect to everyone if they were a crowd all the way around you, which is fucking weird.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's supposed to be implied in that.
Implied what? That you can just psychically connect to there's a limit to it, right? Like you can't make a link to like thousands of people. But like in a stadium, so you can give them all a speech at the same time. But I think
imagine there's like a certain level of like difficulty.
Having to hone in on some, like mind flayers do. They can do or I think the Elder Brain can do one at a time. Right?
Yeah.
So rules as written, it's everybody. It is everybody in a 120-foot radius, which is like if they all pack in nice and tight, that's 1,440 people.
Yeah.
And I think my math is wrong. That you're probably
more if it's small creatures.
More if it's small creatures. Even more if it's tiny creatures.
Yeah.
And if they can fly, shit, we're getting cubic on this shit now. And again, like I said before, your languages, you can speak, read, and write common. It says you can speak, read, and write common. So now I can fucking speak common.
Yeah. No peer review on this.
Yeah.
They just pumped this book out.
Pretty much. So I'm going to lean into the fact that I can't. I'm going to assume that I have no tongue. It's just mandibles. I'm going to make clicking noises, maybe the odd whistle, or creaking noise, and I'm going to rub my antennae together provocatively as you know, Italians use hand motions, right? So that's where I'm coming from.
Okay, wow.
So let's roll initiative and go through the things.
Yay! Okay. Fuck, that was a long one.
Yeah.
But
well, there was a lot of fucking info on them, right?
Well, it was important to know, even if it was making us mad. I got 11.
9.
I got a 1. So, Terry. Plot hook, I think. Or a quest.
Oh, quest for
Something
these
for
guys.
these guys. Like, it's hard baked in that they don't quest. But if they do, they will quest. But they don't quest.
That's what I mean. It's so tough. But because they're nomadic, the quest, as boring as it seems, would be, that they have come across this party of adventurers and they have decided, oh, you must be good hunters. It makes sense for me to stay with you, even though
There's a throwaway line in the book that says that if they team up with other people, they will then consider them their new pack.
right.
So, assuming that there is a pack leader or your party face, the fucking bard will be the party leader, and then they will just follow whatever that person says.
Yeah.
Right. But it's also tough to come up with a quest because, with every quest, there's like something you're going against, and there's a ticking clock, and there's whatever and stuff. But they don't lean into any of that.
No.
It's purely survival, and I don't really have any desires or emotions, or I understand emotions, but so the only quest that makes sense for me is that they've come across this group of adventurers, and it's just logical to survive with them. And how far, even to expand on that, then you're kind of moving away from the lore.
Yeah.
In a way, you're
Well, everybody does the My Precious character anyway, so you're all going to break the rules regardless.
yeah.
But, for fuck's sakes, if you're going to build lore, make it something usable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so here's my take on this, is that, we are talking about Spelljammer, so I don't think a lot of the lore here, like they only spend their time on planes, really is
Well, that's all the
part
shit.
of this.
That's still all the shit. Like, there's very fucking little in the Spelljammer lore that says they are on spelljamming ships.
Yeah, but it also doesn't say that it's not, right? Like, I think that was the whole idea between the new monster manuals and this, and how fucking vague they are in all of their descriptions,
you
right?
can plunk it in wherever you want.
Yeah, and you can do whatever you want with it. So, I mean, they are still in space, still have the seafaring navy that's going around.
Spacefaring, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sure, and maybe that's the plot hook. They're looking for the old gods, or for the lost gods.
Yeah.
They like, that's my thing, is they can learn. It says in some of the other lore that they have learned from nearby settlements about other gods that they could worship instead, and they'll become clerics of these gods. Maybe they're looking for the Juna, the lost gods. That's my plot hook as a DM for you're going to play a Thri-Kreen. Here, let's dig into this. As a player, I might be a Thri-Kreen cleric, especially because the cleric is like, oh, there's nothing I could do. He died. I'm going to take the torso to eat. Who wants a leg?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I have 2 ideas for quest ideas. One, I'm thinking kind of like a biblical plague kind of thing, where they roll into town and just start fucking eating everybody's cattle and livestock, and
Like
just
locusts?
yeah, just making it famine all over the planet because they're trying to weaken it,
And they
so
come
their
from the
evasion
sky.
force comes in afterwards. Or a predator style thing, because it does say they're hunters, right? So
I was thinking about Predator when I was doing my
that
research.
makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
like, you got a MacGuffin, you got to go to this jungle kind of thing, and then really like go into the horror and like how scary it would be sneaking through this jungle with a bunch of essentially invisible enemies that are like hiding in the bushes, and you just
Clicking
hear
at you.
clicking in the
And in previous editions, they could cast invisibility on themselves, so that's fun. They can't anymore.
yeah.
Or the spellcasters can, but they're very few and far between. But fuck, I'll do that. That's a great plot hook. You go to this crystal sphere in Spelljammer, and there's just a bunch of invisible Thri-Kreen.
Oh,
Actually, that's really cool.
Yeah, I don't know. For my plot hook, my quest on this is going to be tied to the fact that there is a great evil. Dear DM, tell us what that evil is. There is a great evil that threatens my pack. I have been sent to learn as much as I can about it and see if I can stop it with other people besides my pack. You guys all seem to be going to that Tomb of Annihilation or that Thunder of the Storm Kings or whatever the fuck it is. So here I am. I'm here to learn so I can report back, and maybe we'll get Thri-Kreen NPCs 3/4 of the way through this fucking adventure.
Sure. Role-playing next, hey? I think this is actually a really good player character for a more experienced player to play, to keep the party progressing the story forward, because they're nomadic, they're loyal to their group, and it's all about survival. on logical decisions. They're not going to be distracted by stupid shit. It's, hey, remember, we're supposed to be doing this and we should go in this direction. It means that they'll also be very, you can play them as very loyal, or more, not loyal, I'd say more helpful, right, in certain situations, in keeping it moving forwards and not letting them get distracted by fucking burning the tavern down or some shit.
Yeah, I really like these guys for sidekicks.
Yeah.
Right? So the NPC that levels up with the party and stuff, that will keep them fucking on task.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I don't know. I don't really like them the way they're written. I don't think they would mesh well with a party. I think they're if you're playing it to how they are written and their lack of emotionality and lack of general caring, right, for anything that's not a hunt. It's just
they're almost more robotic than the Autognomes.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, I find it difficult too. Honestly, I think that if I want to play this and I'm going to play with a bunch of people that have never played or don't have access to Spelljammer, I'm going to come to the table and be like, can I use this playable race over here? And the DM says yes. I'm going to just click, clack, and rub my antennas at people and draw in the dirt for about 7 or 8 levels before I finally telepathically communicate with them. Because it just, why would I waste the mental energy on that shit?
Yeah.
Right? It's not like I get to nap later.
What do you have? Exploration. Yeah, I think I like the idea of it being a more experienced player, and we're thinking Druid Ranger, something like that, right? So I'm leaning into like
Rogue Monk, right? Like,
yeah, but I'd be leaning into like survival and nature, and I would be doing it as a more experienced player because I know that those are the skills that I can roll, which makes it obvious how we progress this thing. You know, you're finding the trail with survival, you're doing whatever, and it's like it makes it obvious if you're working with junior players. Hey, follow the breadcrumbs. We're going this way.
Sorry, there's one thing that I skipped over, and I should bring it up now. They have the Chameleon Carapace, which is when you aren't wearing armor, you have an AC of 13 plus your Dex mod.
Okay.
All right, so
like the
Barbarian Monk, right. As an action, you can change the color of your Carapace to match the color and texture of your surroundings, giving you advantage on stealth checks made to hide in those surroundings.
Okay. That'll come up for the next part, I guess.
Well, I guess that'll be useful for exploration as well. Like now you're really ranger and roguish, right? The pass without trace and all that crazy stealth shit is ramped up to an even higher degree now. So
I think honestly that is their only useful skill in terms of exploration, right? They have no social. I mean, the telepathy, but I mean,
has to be willing creatures. Like you're not eavesdropping on people.
Just because you can talk to them doesn't mean they can talk back either.
That's right.
So, I don't think they have much in terms of exploration and clues.
I will say this, with the telepathy, you can talk to others. That means that as you guys are doing your sneaky, heist through the dungeon, you're avoiding guards and shit. You can be the one that's passing messages. It's acting as a general to everybody else without having to make noise. You're no longer worrying about what's my word count in message or any of that shit, right? Like you can just, the rogue is over here. The paladin is still waiting for that guard to pass before he moves in his heavy boots. Right. Like, and you can, as long as you can, and you can blend in too. You can get right into the middle of it and stealth against the wall. I can see absolutely fucking everything, and I'll communicate for everybody. You become this little telepathic node that this hub for everybody to connect to. That's kind of neat. I don't think that's going to come up super often. Not unless you're building a campaign that way.
Yeah, it's one of those things that your DM is rewarding your choice of whatever, right, and finding a use for you.
Yeah. I'm going to say this, though, for exploration. Honestly, the DM... Okay, so there are a handful of playable races. I don't know if you guys know about them because you're not on a whole lot of the race episodes, but that level up at level 5. At level 5, this fucking thing unlocks.
Yeah, you get more spells, like some of them that
the Verdant suddenly goes from small to medium size the moment they hit level 5. Like there's some things that do cool shit like that. I would give them standing leap at level 5.
Yeah.
Right. Give them the thing out of the monster manual. That's fun. It's interesting. And these guys aren't super powered. So that's not going to totally fuck up your campaign.
Yeah. Combat. Okay, yeah. I mean, there wasn't too much that was standing out like crazy obvious things. I mean, the fact that they're, what you just described a moment ago, Adam, that gives them advantage on their stealth checks and stuff.
Oh, yeah, their chameleon shit.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, now that makes sense to do something like a rogue because then
assassin
sneak attack, right? You can give yourself advantage if you are hidden, right?
Yeah.
So So if you combine that with the fact that, you're likely going to be in a position where, especially because of the telepathy thing, where you can kind of map out the battlefield before anybody else gets there in a lot of detail. The caster, this kind of wand, this, spell pouches, whatever, everything that people need to know, so that you're not doing that thing of trying to pass messages in the middle of the combat using your interactions on stuff.
Yeah.
You can get most of that out of the way early, and then at least have at least one character get a surprise condition from.
It also helps you have dark vision, right? That's another thing that's helpful.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
a
true.
lot of it is going to be that ability. I think is going to be a large part of the stuff that you would do right before combat. I think would be what I would lean into.
Yeah.
Oh, total sidebar. You may be the only one that is awake and moving around, and you may have telepathy, but you have to be able to see the others to wake them. If they're intense, you still have to make noise to wake them. You can't just telepathically wake up other people if you can't lay your eyes on them.
Yeah.
Combat, I mean, the unarmored thing is pretty good, that we talked about earlier, but I mean, the 4 arms can be hugely advantageous in combat, right? So, especially if you're taking something like a fighter, and, you've got 2 swords in each, or a sword in each hand, and then you also have 2 crossbows in your little hands.
Yeah.
And then you're doing, I don't know how many attacks you can do in a single round with.
As a fighter, depends on what level you are.
Yeah.
Right?
But I mean, the rogue also has that ability where they can shoot a crossbow with a bonus action, a light crossbow, hand crossbow.
Is that a rogue thing, or is that the crossbow expert?
It might be crossbow expert.
Crossbow expert is you do not get disadvantage within 5 feet, and you ignore the loading property.
That's what it is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there's a roguish thing. Yeah, I know you're talking about. Kyle's seen that. I'm trying to remember if that.
I think it's crossbow expert.
Yeah, look, as far as combat goes, I want to lean into the unique weapons that they use. We do have stats over in the monster manual for them, so I'm going to do that. I just think that's more interesting to keep it flavorful. And also, if I'm not using a spellcasting focus, I can wield the 2-handed big-ass weapon as well as be throwing out, like I can hold the ranged ones in my hands and not have to stow and sheath or put away my main combat. I can go melee to ranged seamlessly.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so before we wrap this episode up, let's cut to our last ad break.
If you've been inspired by the conversation in this episode, please feel free to reach out and share your creativity and ideas with us and the rest of the community. You can reach us on Facebook and Instagram, or on our subreddit r/itsAmimic. Also, if you're feeling particularly generous, please follow and subscribe, and leave us positive reviews, likes, and comments. Engagements like that help us pop up on search engines and keep this show running.
do you guys have anything that really sticks out in your head as being like the single best synergy with a class for your race? Let's roll initiative on this.
19.
14.
I got a 2. I just can't fucking roll tonight. All right, Kyle.
With the plasmoids,
Yeah.
monk. I would definitely go with a monk. So I could take full advantage of the amorphous ability and do a bunch of grapple and not have to worry about dropping stuff.
I feel like I just covered a fucking subclass. Like, within the last 20 episodes, that was an Ooze-based subclass.
Oh, I've heard about that.
I'm trying to remember now what that was.
I think it was like a cleric of the ooze or a ooze druid.
Druid?
Hold on. Let me think about it. I think, Terry, you were next.
Yeah. I feel like, Kyle, you said barbarian for Autognome, and I feel like that does make sense. You know what? I would maybe go fighter as well. The fact that you can add for built for success, you can add a D4 to one attack roll. That's going to come in handy with the multiple attacks where it is important for you to land those attacks. If you're playing like a champion fighter, that you're relying on that, so it's good to have an extra chance of that working. I'm thinking fighter or barbarian for Autognome.
I like the idea of kill mode activated.
Yeah,
And then
barbarian, right?
nuts, yeah.
Yeah.
And then just the healing abilities that it has, and the skill where you can add a D4, which is basically you just have bless on command.
Yeah.
Or guidance.
Yeah, the
Guidance on
fact that
command.
there's 2 ways you can be healed. So regular healing magic or mending as well.
Mm.
And
And mending is a cantrip, so it doesn't even take a spell slot to heal you.
That's what it was. It was the Aberrant Mind Sorcerer.
Okay.
The Aberrant Mind Sorcerer has a thing at level 14. It's called Revelation in Flesh. As a bonus action, you can spend some sorcery points to transform your body for 10 minutes. And then you get a bunch of different options about what you can do as a result. And it's like slimy, oozy shit.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can spend 1 sorcery point per and have them all.
Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one feels good for Plasmoids. I'm thinking Gloomstalker Ranger for a Thri-Kreen.
Okay, yeah.
Right? You get a lot of that, like, from the darkness level shit and being able to get all of these special things. Like, if you go first on your turn, you get this and this and this. And I feel like I'm going to take the alert feat as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm going to lean into the hunter side of that mentality. There's not a whole lot of arcane shit going on in this episode. Hey?
Right.
Yeah.
Not a lot of wizards or bards. The fucking Plasmoid Bard of Eloquence is hilariously annoying and maybe an NPC. But I wouldn't do that as a player.
I was actually thinking about a bard for the Autognome, and it's basically it was created
Auto-tune.
It's a fucking jukebox.
Close. So it was originally created to play in a band in its master's restaurant that was a hot spot for prize gamblers, and he just got really sick of playing the same crappy music all day, and he needed to get out. He needed creative freedom for, his art. And his name? Cellars E. Cetius.
Fuck off. Jesus.
Fucking hell. You left us hanging a while for that one.
God damn it.
Okay. On that bombshell, Kyle. Get us out of this thing.
So, folks, that is all for our discussion today on Autognomes, Plasmoids, and Thri-Kreen. Make sure you subscribe or follow, and check back regularly to see what inspirations and insights we will have for you in the future. Next week, we'll be exploring phenomenal cosmic power and itty-bitty living spaces.
You know what that means.
I understood that reference. Thank you for listening to another episode of the It's a Mimic podcast. If you'd like to support us, we have a donate button on our website. That's www.itsamimic.com, a store with some It's a Mimic merch, and a Patreon. This episode and others can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and most other podcast apps. Thanks again for listening to It's a Mimic, where you never know what you're gonna get.
This has been an It's a Mimic production. Please check the show notes for this episode to see links, time codes, and credits, and don't forget to reach out and share your own inspirations.
I like the whole judo concept of you push, I pull. If that's the momentum that you want, I'll try and lean into
That's
that
the name of my
for
sex
you.
tape.
Yeah.
You push, I pull.
All right.
Fucking hell.
See you next Tuesday.